Welcome back, everybody, to the M365 FM Podcast. Today, we are talking about one of the most important and often misunderstood parts of Power Platform governance. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Copilot Studio, Dataverse, and the wider Power Platform gives people, uh, gives people across the business the ability to solve problems really quick. The accessibility is the magic, but it also creates a real enterprise question. Who can build what? Where does business data go? How do we keep environments secure? How do we prevent shadow IT without becoming the team say no to everything? My guest today is Michael Roth. Michael has been working as a consultant since 2011 and has been a part of the IT and Microsoft ecosystem since around 2015. His experience spans from Microsoft 365, collaboration technologies, and organizational consulting, give him a broad view of what it really takes to make digital solutions sustainable. Today, Michael focused on Power Platform governance, administration security, and organization enablement. He helps organizations create practical governance frameworks from DLP strategies and environment architecture to custom inventory, lifecycle management, and adoption tuning built directly from the platform. His perspective is simple but powerful. Power Platform is not a hobby tool. It's an enterprise software that happens to be accessible. The goal is not to make yeah. The goal is not to slow make us down, but it gives the clarity, confidence, and guardrails to build faster, safer, and which more then gives more business value. Michael, welcome to the MC65 FM podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's great to be here. Just a small clarification right at the beginning. The goal to give the maker clarification is the goal of my governance approach and not the goal of the Power Platform. But I think that's pretty clear to everyone who's listening.
Yeah, sorry. It's for both in Germany. I was in Germany. It's really hot today. I think it's a little put on the brain, but thank you. Yeah. Um, Michael, before we go deep into governance, security, and administration, tell us a little bit about your journey. You started in consulting 2011, then moved more deeply into the Microsoft ecosystem around 2015. What
Mhm.
drew you into this world?
Pure accident and a little bit of laziness, I would say. Um, in 2011, when I started my journey into consulting, it wasn't necessarily IT consulting, but it was more organizational development, where I worked with mostly managers in all kind of ranks towards how to create a team, how communication works, how change management actually works, what is necessary into that. So that was more or less my origin. And during this time, I stumbled upon a project that was closely related to IT, to information classification, so IT security actually. And
Hmm.
I managed the change management plan, how this company would build up an information classification system. And there was so much work because it was a big enterprise. At some point, we even maxed out our Excel tables. We had Excel tables with all the list, all the information that we needed, and we maxed it out. So we had more than 1 million lines. There was a point where I realized the thing with the computers and IT, maybe they will stick around and maybe it would make sense to dive more into the technical part of like life and our work. So kind of out of the blue, I applied for a job at an IT company, and they were like, "Great, do you have any experience?" And I said, "No." So there was a little bit awkward, a little bit an awkward interview, to be honest, because I got lots of IT questions and I couldn't answer them. Um, in fact, I think last week I thought about one of those questions, and I still have no idea where this comes from. There was a guy, and he was like out of the blue, "Do you know what a forest is in IT?" I was like, "No, never heard that term before in IT." And I still haven't. I know that this is now the collection of all the entries in your Entra ID, something like that. But I was completely lost at that interview. But somehow I managed to build, I think, a car park management app or something like that, um, in SharePoint with lists and all this stuff. This was way before Power Platform. even before I even started in that. Um, yeah, and then I kind of was stuck in IT and focused on change management and introduction of Office 365 and M365. What is Teams and Planner and Project, and how does it work? So I would say the soft skills guy side of IT. And then, because I'm really lazy, I discovered Power Automate and Power Apps, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like my kind of jam. Like, automate your tasks. That's what I want to do for my tasks. And I failed miserably, but then I discovered the community, the Microsoft community around it, and I got so much help, and I engaged with different people. And then at some point, I built my first flow, and then I got better at work at building flows, and then apps, and then I worked as a, yeah, more or less app and flow developer for quite some time. Um, but I realized it was a struggle for me because coding doesn't come naturally to me. As I mentioned, I didn't study IT or didn't have any experience. So after a couple of years working with the Power Platform, I decided that I should use my skill that I had from university, like communication, change management, analyzing situations. That I should use this together with IT. And the end is that I now consult companies with how to work with Power Platform. Why in general work with Power Platform, how to make it secure, because somehow no one talks about it, like administration, security, and governance.
Mhm.
So I kind of took this niche or this role by accident because nearly no one was there, and it kind of fitted my skills. So it is fun for me now, and I'm still at the point where say I can develop my apps and flows, and I do that for myself. But on an enterprise scale, for example, please let the coders do their work because I'm clearly not as good as them are. So yeah, that's how I ended in my spot in a short story.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And you're also well recognized sports star. You're a mini golf champion. How did this shape your career?
Well, well, this sounds bigger than it actually is, I guess. Um, that was with a bunch of people from the community. I attended the South Coast Summit in the UK.
Mm.
And I don't know why, but we thought we come from Germany, we drive through Belgium and the Netherlands, and then we can go by car to the UK. So let's make a road trip. This is fun, right? It was fun for the, I would say, first 15, 20 minutes. And then you have like a day long road trip in a car. And it was a little bit, it was a lot of driving. So we decided to take a break at some point, and there was a mini golf course. And I won just this game. Um, And since I won this game against many other Microsoft MVPs from different areas, I decided to call myself reigning mini golf champion from that point on. And that's all of it. That's all in this. But that's the story is about actually. Maybe I could delete it now from LinkedIn, but it's still there, and I don't know.
Yeah. Um, okay. A lot of people see the Power Platform, I say, as collection of tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Dataverse, Copilot Studio, and what's also in it. You see it as an organizational capability. What's the difference between those, yeah, both mindsets?
Yeah. Um, Power Platform consists of many different services. So Power Automate is a service, Power Apps is a service, Power Pages is a service, and so on and so on. So what you get there is a classic software as a service thing. And that's still true, but the whole platform that combines or basically is the foundation for all these services to run on. That is the Power Platform that is baked into your tenant, into your Azure subscription, into everything like that. Then that is not software as a service. That is a platform as a service. And there's a difference between that. What kind of features are managed by Microsoft when you have a software as a service product versus what is managed by Microsoft when you have a platform as a service product. And that is a difference. And therefore, Power Platform is kind of both. It's a platform as a service, and if you have enabled it in your tenant and you use it, the services is software as a service for your users. but not for you as, let's say, administrator, as someone who owns the tenant, as someone who is in charge. And that makes a fundamental difference in how to act as a, let's say, Power Platform developer or Power Platform administrator or Power Platform, I don't know, owner. If you are the owner of the platform or the services in your company, then you have to ask different questions and do different things. Developing and running flows is one thing, but managing a whole group of makers and citizen developers who do that is a different thing.
Y-
So that is something, yeah. Sometimes I think as Microsoft started to deliver the story, to really um, make this a story that even this is just a low code platform, it still requires work and setup and maintenance. That is something, and I'm really glad that Microsoft started to spread the story more and more, because in the very beginning it was all a little bit, it's easy, everyone can do that, it's a little bit of clicky here, and then voila, you have a flow, a business critical flow. So that is yeah, that is, I guess, the main difference between why, because I say there's a platform, on in this platform there are services like Power Automate, Power Apps, and whatnot.
Yeah, and there comes your, I say, your clear statement. You say Power Platform is not a hobby tool; it's an enterprise software. Yeah, I love this.
Actually, actually, I would love to be Power Platform to be a hobby tool, because I have so many things I would automate for myself. But for Power Platform, you need a business license. That is the point. And so that means even if you do something as a hobby tool with Microsoft, then you're always bound to your, yeah, not to your tenant, but to your licenses, so to say. That is something. But yeah, sorry, didn't want to interrupt. It's not a hobby tool. No, it's a pure pure professional business application platform.
Yeah. What's the other most common misconceptions leaders have when they hear low code citizen development? And I think actually we have also start with low code on the platform. Vibe coding or low code. I don't know how the Microsoft actually called it.
We are still on a low code platform with the Power Platform. Vibe coding is getting more and more into the platform. There was, how was it called? Power Apps Plan, Power Apps Plans or something like that, where you basically build your apps and codes and whatever with prompts. So this vibe coding element is getting more and more into the platform. Not sure how I think about that, but the most common misconception, I guess it changes, or it kind of changed. In For very long years, I think it always was following the Microsoft message. It's easy and everyone can do that. That is not wrong, but to have it or to treat it more like a enterprise or business tool, then it's not easy. If you want to use it in a professional way, if you want to have return on profit, for example, or if you want to solve real problems, then you would have to put in some effort. And it's especially, I would say, Power Pages, Power Apps. That is something, or at least not all Power Apps, but Canvas apps that require some kind of coding. That requires some kind of learning and some time and effort to put in. And that is, I guess, we had, if you see this like a wave where of the development at the beginning, everyone was like, yeah, this is super easy, and everyone built a whole lot of apps and flows, and they are all stored in default environment. And after a while they broke, they never really got finished, it was all tests, and they realized, okay, we have to put in some serious effort here. And then this the usage of Power Platform went a little bit down, I think. And then there was a point where the more IT professionals started to discover Power Platform and put in some more work. And now what I see is lots of organizations use Power Platform. Many users are using that for their personal productivity projects, so small kind of flows, reminders, something like this. And on the other hand, we have not even business apps, but whole business projects, like solutions that contain dozens of flows and apps and tables and everything. And that is, and plugins and custom coding and all of that. That is like a lot on the one hand side, and just lower effort on the other side. So that's kind of interesting. That seems to be no in between, more or less.
Yeah, that's cool. But I think for people to understand what's happened, can you give us one or two examples where we have seen its flow or app become start with a good intention, but becomes critical in the business?
Um, yes, it's a little bit tricky because when you say a flow or an app or whatever, a Power Platform solution becomes business critical. It always depends on what you mean with critical, because when you have a flow that helps you get the correct data from a big database like SAP. I write my own code. I have access to the SAP database, and so I can delegate my access to my flow to really get access and give get gets let show me the data that I need for my personal work. That is fine. That in a few terms can be a non-business critical flow. If now this flow gets shared with more and more people and they edit it and they customize a little bit, and in the end you have 40 people that have automated access to SAP and they would not only receive data but also write data, then you would that would become a problem because you don't know what kind of data is getting in and you don't have like a layer of proof or something like that. Is something that you want to avoid. That could be a business critical, a flow that started with good intention, but then got business critical. I have another example, yet a completely different example. Um, I had a company and they used in the pre-Christmas season, they have like these Christmas parties and celebrations, and they do what a secret Santa and stuff like that. So very harmless, right? Um, they would do this every year, and at some point they said, "Okay, let's do this with Power Automate because to figure out who is gifting to whom, like the secret Santa stuff, we can do this with a little bit IT, with a little bit automation. That works, right?" So they built a secret Santa app. Absolutely not business critical. The point is now, every employee of the company was invited to this app, which is also fine. But then you have one app, one small little app that doesn't do something critical, but there are 500 people in there. And over the time, you got a fluctuation in your stuff. Like people are leaving the organization, new people are coming, and so this app was kind of the list of members was outdated, and that means that you had at least 15 to 20 people or accounts in there that were not active anymore, and that is like a huge security gap because these accounts could be utilized. They were still in the Entra ID whatsoever, and with those accounts, you could do some serious harm. So that is another example of an application or an idea that is very harmless and very fun and lighthearted. But if you don't maintain it and you have so many people involved, there's so much potential for mischief, let's say. So it all depends on the context, what is critical or what is not, what is secure, what is insecure. It's never the app, almost never the app. It's almost always the behavior of the people. And
Hmm.
that is something important to understand, if especially if you think about governance and security. All the tools that we have in the admin center, we have data loss prevention policies, and that are tools to work to make your governance work. But in the end, you have to train your people because they are first and last baseline of security, basically.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, tools help absolutely. If we wouldn't have a tool like DLP or something like that, would be tricky. Then.
Yeah, I think
But yeah,
governance. You're the specialist, the governance specialist, well known in the world. So many makers hear the word governance, and immediately they think of bureaucracy, tickets, approvals, and restrictions. Uh,
yes,
how
absolutely.
how do you redefine governance for them?
Actually, I think I don't redefine governance. I explain governance. I think that is a thing, because in governance and security as well, you always have something like you have to decide: do you want it to be super secure and super governed? Then it's really not handy to work. Then it takes effort. It takes time. You have to write tickets, and you have to make backup copies and all that. That takes time, and it's not this easy breezy. I just click around and move ahead of have a flow. That is something different. If you want this to be super easy and with no restrictions at all, and everyone can use it anytime and it's super fast, then it's probably not that secure. So you have that decision to make anyhow. But the idea that people think of governance and no, now it's going to be slow and it's super awkward and it's I can't use all the connectors that I want, so that they don't want really governance or security. That's understandable, and I absolutely see that. I have a very interesting example that I've seen with a German company. Surprise, it was a German one. And they said, okay, we want this secure. So they came up with a process who can develop apps and flows, who would prove and test and those apps and flows, and then they would be released at some point. The whole process was kind of solid. It was secure. It was good, understandable. Everyone knew how to work, how to handle it, how this process works. But this process took, in the best case, if I have from my first idea what kind of app or flow do I want to build, from I requested the access to the environment and to the right connectors. If everything went through smoothly, this process went for 6 months. So best case, I have an idea for an app, and 6 months later it's done, regardless if I work 6 months on this app or just finish it in one day. So that was a little bit of security and governance overkill. And people were really angry, and they were like, we don't take this anymore. That doesn't make any sense. And that was just the best case. So if you work on your app and 2 weeks, 3 weeks into work, you realize, oh dang, I need another connector, then the whole process started from the beginning. So it could be that your application development lifecycle would take a year for an app, but you would build in a week. That was overkill. Now the point is, so you can overdo it for sure, but governance and security doesn't automatically mean slow, sluggish, and not usable anymore. And quite often in my workshops, I use an example that I think fits really well. And this is the idea if we think about traffic rules that we have in our everyday life. We do have traffic rules right now. We have lights and signs in Germany. We have so many signs on the road. Um, what So and we do have a driver's license test. That is something as well. So if I want to use a vehicle, a car, I have to take a driver's license. I have to learn all the rules, and I have to identify all the signs. I have to know what they mean, and then I can participate in traffic.
Mhm.
And I even sometimes put my kids in my car, so I make them participate in traffic because I feel safe enough in traffic to navigate around and everything is fine. Now, if you imagine we wouldn't have any signs or any rules in traffic, like no traffic lights, no clear rules of who drives first, and you wouldn't have to take a test, anyone who has access could just enter a car and just go for it. Then what happened? It would feel very insecure for us to participate in traffic because you would have to fear that every corner someone would smash into you or just ignore the lights if we would have any in the first place. So what would happen then if you would participate in traffic in such a world without any rules inside? What would you say?
I think chaos.
Chaos? Yes. Would you participate in traffic
No.
like every day?
No,
You would be cautious.
I'm not a really good car driver, so my woman drives. So I think, but if every yeah, I think, and Cologne, I drive there for sometimes, and it's yeah, for me it's double hard. I think
Yeah. Okay.
I don't very much.
And that is with traffic rules. So most people answer me this question like this. They would say, "Yes, I would participate in traffic. I would drive in my car, but not all the time. Only if it's really necessary. Like I need something urgently or something like that. Would I take my kids? I don't think so. And especially, I would drive very slow because I always have to take into calculation that someone would smash into me or would drive way too fast or something.
Yeah.
So the whole process would be slowed down extremely. And it would be a lot of effort to do that. It would feel insecure. You're not allowed what to do when and stuff like that. And
Mm,
it's the same with governance rules in Power Platform. If everyone is allowed to do anything all the time and you don't have any regulations, you don't have any rules, or people don't know the rules, then what happens, at least for the administrator, is in every environment, all of the time, there are always apps and flows popping up, being deleted. Um, Things would break all the time. The IT security, IT administrator would have to like act like a firefighter. They wait for an emergency to happen, then they rush to it and try to fix things. That is
mm,
frustrating for everyone. For users now, if they don't know what's allowed and what not, where am I allowed to build, what can I use and what not, they get cautious because sometimes you get like emails from IT, like you broke a rule or you get a DLP violation error or something like that. It's like I didn't intend to do that, but I didn't know any better. So the whole process is sometimes slow. If you have a clear set of rules and regulations, and it's that is the second important part, and it's communicated to everyone that is using the Power Platform, and they understand it. Like, here is your environment where you can build. Just go wild, do whatever you want. We've secured it. You can try whatever you want to try. Then the makers and the citizen developers, they have the confidence to build free, to experiment, to break things even, because that is, I think, a necessary part in learning and developing. It's like if you do something and it breaks, usually at some point you learn a lesson and you say, why does it break? Why is it me? Is it the restriction? Something like this. So I often see from as a result from my work in companies where I work and we worked on a governance approach that the development cycle actually gets faster and accelerates. And the incidents, the incident rate gets lower. And
mm.
usually that is a win-win for both sides. So and that is often the problem. When people and makers hear the word governance and security, they think, oh no, now I'm not allowed to do stuff anymore. The point is often most administrators and platform owners I know, they would be happy if they knew what people want to do and why. So if someone says, I have a great idea for the Instagram connector and our business data, instantly I would say, no, that doesn't sound too good. But if they put their ideas into like a plan, like why would you want to do that? What would you want to do? Even maybe you would give him like a demo example where they can try out if it works. Let's see how the result is. Then maybe it's a valuable idea. I don't know that yet. But from the administrator or owner perspective, I can't really evaluate the idea yet enough if I just hear this kind of scenario. So what really the important point of my work is to explain what is governance and what is it for. Because in the end, um, governance is a part of the solution that everyone that works in companies still has a job tomorrow, because really big oopsies, they cost jobs and money, and that
Mm,
is something that we don't want, especially not with a cool and fun tool like Power Platform.
mm. Yeah.
Because I think just this last thought maybe, uh, um, it, what Power Platform does is it democratizes the accessibility to software solutions. So even without extensive computer or programming knowledge, you can build your own solutions because you are the expert of your own for your own work. You know what really sucks at work and what could be done better, and now you have the possibility to solve it yourself, and that is really really important and brings lots of value. And I don't want to restrict that too much. That would be a shame, basically. So
Yeah.
explaining what governance is usually it's it lowers the fear, I would say.
Mm, yeah. Fear. Yeah. Roots and fear. It's yeah. I think one of or some of your articles, you a little bit reframing the governance to clarity, confidence, and boundaries.
Yes.
Um, let's a little bit unpack that. First, let's a little bit talk about clarity. What does clarity looks like in a major Power Platform organization? Is it clear ownership, clear environment, clear data classification, connector rules, escalation paths? What is clarity?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think, and that is not only for Power Platform, but for every aspect in life, clarity brings freedom. If I know, if I have clarity in if I know what I can do, what is expected of me, what's supposed to happen, I know rules, then I have the freedom to choose how I act. That is something. If I don't have clarity, and if some things are uncertain and the outcome and the expected outcome is uncertain, then I maybe hesitate to take action. If I know what will happen, if everything lies clear to me, then I can choose my actions and do so. And clarity in Power Platform is exactly that. On the one hand side for the maker, on the one other hand side for the administrators, let's say. Let's start with the maker side. That means if a maker knows default environment is forbidden, no, don't build here. If the maker knows I can have my personal developer environment and I can build there within all the restrictions that we have. For example, we won't use the Twitter or X connector or the Instagram connector. Fine. Then I have the freedom of building my flows and apps, but without those connectors. I can do that. If I still want to use those connectors, for example, and I can ask for it, maybe like a demo, extra secure demo environment or something, then clarity would mean that I know whom to ask. Where do I go
Mhm.
to if I have a question? Where do I go to if something breaks? That is like a first level support process that I have. And if I have such a process, it's really necessary that my makers and or users, basically all of them, they know about it. How does it work? Where do I go to? Where do I have to click? What language should I use? Something like that. And this clarity is important for users all the time, all the kind, but for Power Platform especially, I think. On the other hand, clarity for administrators looks differently. As an administrator, I want to know what's going on in my tenant because I'm responsible for security. And I can't be responsible if, let's say, 100 maker who don't have any clarity and they just click around aimlessly, then I can't provide the security that is my job. So I need the clarity to see what's going on my tenant. What environments are there? Who has access to those environments? Are there any other administrators or people who have extended rights? Um, is there a citizen developer, an account that has developed 50 new custom connectors? And I would like to know about this. What do those connectors do? I don't want to restrict the development of connectors, but I just want to know if they are working within the compliance rules of our organization. I just need to know that, and before I can evaluate some of this, I need to know what's there and what's not. So clarity. I need a good inventory. So for administrators, the term clarity is a more technical term. I need a good fucking inventory. Otherwise, I have no idea what's going on. And if I have no idea what's going on, I can't govern it. So clarity, it's absolutely a must have.
Yeah. Okay. The clarity brings the freedom, and then we have confidence. What brings confidence?
Well, as I said, clarity brings confidence. That is kind of the point. It follows each other. If I know what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do, then I have the confidence to build within those restrictions that I have. Um, if I don't know if I'm doing something forbidden right now, then I don't act confident. Then I always act like I'm trying to stay under the radar. I'm trying to be hidden, to not get caught or something. That is not confident. That is sneaking around, and that is what we for decades now call shadow IT. Shadow IT is a term not necessarily fitting in this discussion or in this confidence discussion, but shadow IT is an important term. Um, and a Power Platform has the opportunity to build this inventory, to get this clarity for all participants. And that means that confidence coding is possible for everyone, for administrators and for users, for citizen developers, for all the people that we have. And this confidence, I think clarity brings confidence, and confidence on the other hand brings clarity. Because if I build confidently and I can transport my ideas and I can communicate my ideas and show the output like proud and confident, then I have a foundation to talk about what I've done. Is it a good solution? Is it valuable? Is it nice to have? But if I don't have this, then I can't talk about this, and then we drift into this shadow IT world where I try to not get caught by administrator because I built something that is not really allowed.
Yeah, and then we have the last key, yeah, the last word, boundaries. What's their role?
The point why I put this word in there is boundaries is something else from restrictions. If something is forbidden, I know it is. I'm just not allowed to do that. A boundary, at least in my head, in my understanding, is something that is n- not necessarily forbidden, but we don't do that because of a specific reason. So we have reasoning for it. And that is kind of often another misconception that we have in IT, between IT and business often. IT says no, but not why. And the business is, well, that sucks. A boundary for me is usually communicated within a reasonable, well, we do have a reason for that. And when I say um, I don't want to allow the Instagram connector in our tenant, then I should be better in the position to say why. Because it's linked to Meta and Meta collects data like crazy. And we don't want our business data like to get to Meta because we don't know what they do actually with it. And that is not our goal. So that is a little bit maybe it's a little bit sneaky of me to swap the term being forbidden, being restricted, by being there's a boundary. But you can always discuss about the boundary. And if you have a fixed rule, there's not much room for discussion. So maybe it's a little bit, but it's as you said in the beginning, it's reframing. It's reframing what governance means and why we do that, why we do have boundaries, and what's the reason behind it. Once again, and these boundaries and those security rules and governance rules and that we have, they have to be flexible in a way because that means a rule that was yesterday absolutely fine doesn't mean it's absolutely fine tomorrow. Sometimes the compliance rules that we have to follow, they change as well. Example would be the EU AI Act that just came to terms. This now is a major change in how we act in the European Union, and now we have to adapt our rules and compliance for that. Another example would be seatbelts. Seatbelts were not mandatory in cars for quite some times in the 60s and stuff. Now they are. So we have to adapt our compliance and our rules. So I think boundaries are a little bit more flexible and they can be adapted. So that's the important point. So reframing governance and explaining why we do what we do, and also be in the position to take some critical questions. If all of my users say that doesn't make sense and I explain you why, then I should be confident enough, and I can be confident if I have the clarity, if I know what's going on, to take this discussion. Why do we do that, or why don't we allow that? And that is something that is necessary, I think, in the whole security, IT security, and the governance area. And Power Platform kind of shows it because so many people have access all of a sudden, and yeah, makes it kind of a more open issue.
Yeah. I worked for, well, I don't know, 2 years for one of the biggest automotive companies. I'm not allowed
Oh,
to say their name, but in my time in Wolfsburg,
no.
I was
All right,
for
got
a
it.
micro was there for a Microsoft Fabric project, and it's what was
Yeah.
really interesting because they use the Power Platform heavy, really heavy. They have flows. They give the data back, transform it. There was bots they're working with it. They have custom connections to it. SharePoint was connected and also varied of Dataverse databases also connected to this. Um, and then I think I know the answer, but from your perspective, why is inventory the foundation of governance?
Um, as I said earlier, if you don't know what you don't know what to have to do to govern it, to make it secure. It's as easy as that. Um, and for that, I have plenty of examples. Because usually it's when I work with companies and organizations, I ask them, do you have a governance? And say, yes, we do. Second question is, And have you written it down, like documented? No, almost. No, something like that. So um, when we start the governance project, usually we start with inventory. Okay, what do we have? Like we open up the hood and let's see what really out there. And quite often we find something like, I don't know, 600 apps in default environment. And that is not best practice. That is in fact actually a security risk. Um, Quite often we find just a couple accounts, like those very power users who are very confident, they have fun at it, and they develop a few custom connectors. And then you realize, okay, they could do a lot of stuff with those custom connectors. I just want to see what's happening to my data. Where is it right now? It's a little bit like switching on the light in a dark room. You have to see what there is in order to decide how to proceed. Um, and sometimes have funny moments with that. A good friend of mine once, who also works in governance, he had a project in the customer, and they found a custom connector to, let's say, to an internet site, to let's say an adult film site. I don't want to say the name, but I think everyone knows what's meant by that. And they got a custom connector who just would receive data. This would receive playlists and stuff. And I
Okay.
don't know what the background was, if they had like any business with that, or if they just were curious. See, like, can we do this? Because of course there's an API and you can connect to that, and that was really interesting. And if you want to make a rule in your company, don't connect our tenant to adult film sites. Then you have to know that people do that in the first place. And yeah, that why inventory is the absolutely first and important thing for governance.
Yeah, that's a really funny thing because there was one guy, he get a little bit famous, and yeah, he what's the English word? He has also a connector. How is it called? I have I never used this word in English. I have to look. Betting stuff. How they're and they sell it what they have used in these movies. So they have
Yeah, yeah.
it's a marketing funny marketing idea, but yeah, I I think it's really interesting for what you can use these custom connectors. But the other thing with the dark room, you say, and bring the light there. Okay, not all dark rooms like it in Cologne, but um, I say it's the visibility topic, and how can we start bring visibility to the inventory? What's your tips here?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the last couple of years, I always said use the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. Well, surprise. So now it's deprecated now, um, which means we can use it still, but there won't be any updates. And yeah, now we have to think about how we do that. Now, the good thing is that we have a new inventory in the Power Platform Admin Center natively. So it's there and it's not bad. I usually don't say very good things about the PPAC, Power Platform Admin Center. But this I really like. It's not bad. It's but a pure inventory. It shows you what is there. Um, Compared to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, I use that inventory to combine it with my rules. So I have those Dataverse tables with all my flows, environments, apps, and usually I build my flows on top of those tables to make like rules and alerts and stuff like that. It's not possible within the admin center now, but this inventory in the admin center is kind of fast because it doesn't use a flow to gather the data from all the tenant, but it queries the API directly, and that means um, whereas with the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, um, all the sync flows to run through, you have a time window from like 24 hours or something like that to get new set of data. If something changed, took a while until you realized, hey, there's something new. Now this goes within 10, 15 minutes. The query against the API is very fast. It's very cool. It's not complete yet. A few things are missing, like we don't have custom connectors in that, and we don't have names of owners or clear names, I think, for all the stuff. So it's still under development, but it's a very good start. And especially for smaller and medium-sized companies, this is absolutely sufficient. So no need to build something more complex than that, or to buy a governance product from one of the vendors we have out there. So this is cool. Um, if we don't want that, or we want something that is a little bit more customized than the PPAC thing, it's not that hard to build your own inventory with the Power Platform API. We have like 3 or 4 APIs that we need to build up something like a Center of Excellence clone or something like that. And with all the AI we have, like ChatGPT, AI, and whatever we have, it's kind of doable to build your inventory, even if you are not that deep into coding. So that kind of works good. And for all medium-sized and bigger companies, that's what I do, and I suggest all the time. Basically, is build your own inventory based on your customized needs, because if you don't have premium licenses and you have no one in your company that can build model-driven apps or custom connectors, then you don't need to monitor for model-driven apps or custom connectors. Easy as that. So, um, kind of depends on your custom on your needs, but 2 things: the PPAC API inventory is very good now, not complete yet. And the other hand is build it yourself, and that is something that is necessary now, because Center of Excellence Starter Kit is, well, not dead, but um, not alive too. And especially with all the agents that we have now, Copilot Studio agents. There is another toolkit, the Copilot Studio Kit. Don't
Mm.
know if you know about it, but that is quite nice for an inventory as well, especially and only for Copilot Studio. Um, but then once again, for a good inventory, how to do that, how to start, is use the kits that are there. Maybe even you still use the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, but have a backup plan, because in the next 12 or 18 months, you won't use it anymore. And build up your own thing, what you need. So once again, start with let's say, a project like inventory. Switch on the lights in your environments and see what you have. See what you have to take care of, and then build up an inventory and governance node according to those needs that you have.
Yeah, when we have our inventory, I think the next step we have to talk about it's life cycle management. Can you tell us a little bit how do you handle this?
Um, yes, I can do that. Before that, I would say the first thing that I do after the inventory is more or less to get like a map. I split the tenant into different environments and see what do we need. We do have the default environment and we don't get rid of that. Usually I restrict that very, very strongly. But then I have a environment for the IT department administrators. So everything that is uh, yeah, just for the IT department, plugins, professional code, all of that is stored in the IT department. Then I have a citizen developer or maker shared environment where they can all put in their flows and apps and share what they have. Everyone get their personal developer environment where they can code, all that. For special and business critical projects, we have like environments with dev, test, and production. And that is when it comes to lifecycle management. First of all, I structure everything that I have into different parts, because if I have to clean up and take care about ALM, I don't want to clean up everything, but just the parts that really need ALM. And ALM is an interesting topic for me right now, because right now I'm in front of a new challenge for me personally and in my business life. Um, I've usually used the GitHub, no, not GitHub, the pipelines, Power Platform pipelines,
Mhm.
because they're quite good now, and I do like the features that come with it, and it's super cool for small and medium-sized companies to use those if you have premium licenses. That is a condition to use them. Um, to have like this chain of environments, dev, test, prod, where you develop, where you test it, and then you take it into production. And they work nice. They do have this GitHub integration now, so you can have a single source of truth in the cloud, in the internet, so you don't rely on your own project and servers and stuff. That is really cool. But if you start developing solutions that are more complex and bigger, and you have custom plugins, for example, if you have multiple solutions that have to merge into one in the end, if you have multiple developers who work on different parts of an application or of a solution, and that you have to merge those results, then it can get nasty. And for that, for usually what is used often is DevOps. And I've never worked with DevOps in my life. Now I have a whole team. They're working with DevOps and they ask me all kind of questions, how to make it secure, how to make it more better and stuff like that. And so I have to speed up my learning right now, especially with DevOps, GitHub, and ALM in general. And what right now is on my table is how to make a Dataverse ALM experience that is kind of similar to GitHub. So that means that if I work on one solution and one part, or let's say one page or one side of an app, and another developer is working on another side, now we are both finished with our work and we put it back into the main solution. How do we make sure that there are no errors coming up? Someone or something has to check if everything will work in the future in production. And that is something that I have a good idea for that. It's a little bit tricky right now, but basically it's with the connection to GitHub. That is something. Well, it's kind of. I realize I'm getting too deep right now. I'm getting too deep a little bit. It's very complex and not yet you're not yet finished. But ALM, um, Power Platform pipelines are very good. Sometimes I think have just smaller teams, and it's not that time critical. You could even do the Power Platform um, SDK works really well if you want to work with VS Code. So there are many different options and opportunities how to work with ALM. And that is a funny thing, or an interesting thing actually, because at the beginning we were talking about Power Platform as a low code platform, and even people without IT background could work with it. Now ALM, and talking about DevOps, pipelines, GitHub, all of a sudden is on the other side of the end, right? This is because citizen developer, I know they pretty much a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to GitHub and tokens and how this all works and how a pipeline works, and that is and that shows how professional the platform is by now. But ALM is something that is very important for the business critical solutions, for the important solutions, but not for the everyday life solutions, like the personal project things that you do, like the reminder flow that reminds me when, I don't know, my boss sent me an email or something like that. That doesn't need ALM. So
Yeah, I think we have the most of the big words now for. I think
yeah, all the buzzwords.
yeah, one is missing. One was missing. Data loss prevention. I think.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We need this also. Yeah, that I think a lot of companies handle data loss prevention like a one click on solution.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit? So we have the big ones
Yeah.
about how did you see data loss prevention?
I don't know how many big words we have, but the big five or something. I don't know. But yes, data loss preventions. Oh, that is a topic. M- and you're right. I think when you said many companies treat them as like a one-click solution. Click, I switched it on. Now I'm fine. Many people or many companies do that, which is, in case of Power Platform, kind of not enough. I don't want to say it's wrong, but it's not enough. Um, but the name is misleading also. So data loss prevention, that sounds like a prevention or policy that, yeah, it kind of prevents data loss. It's not wrong, but it's not what people expect, because the word data loss prevention, or DLP, the abbreviation, is used in different contexts for different things. We have Azure DLPs and M365 DLPs and Teams DLPs, and they all work in kind of the same way, but in the Power Platform, they work differently. Yeah. Um, So data loss prevention policies are policies that define which connectors can be used in one solution. So that means, can I build an app with a SharePoint connector and an Instagram connector? Usually yes, if I have my DLP set up to explicitly forbid that, then no. So it's more or less like a regulation which connectors can be used together and which can be not. Additionally, which connectors are blocked overall. And those DLPs are for every environment. So I can build one for every environment. So I have a little bit of granularity to define which environment can be used for which connectors. Um, this is nice. There are so many issues with it. I don't want to open that topic now. Um, but I want to say, when you use premium licenses and managed environments, you have the advanced connector policies. And these are really cool because they offer you a lot more freedom and granularity to really define what is allowed and what not. Um, Once again, I don't want to get in too deep, but DLPs are one of the main pillars of governance and security. Absolutely, I think. Now let's see. We have tenant security. There's the tenant settings. Then you have the environments. You have DLPs. Then roles and responsibilities. And I think that are the big four. Mm. So the
Yeah.
basics. That is not everything governance and security is about, but those are the big four pillars that you should have at least a vague idea of what they are, what this does, and how to use it. Um, that are the tools that you need to have in your toolbox or in your pocket to make it a little bit more. And maybe the fifth one is a hidden one. That is the let's say the knowledge that the default is always bad. And I don't mean default environment, but I mean default settings. And that is something where sometimes a little bit I argue with Microsoft sometimes, because they deliver their products and their platforms, and especially with a low code platform like Power Platform, they want every user or almost every user to have access to use their product, right? If you if you develop a product and you give it to your users, you want them to use it. The problem is, if everyone has access, then all the people who don't know what they do or they don't want to do it, they also have access, and that is a security gap. So access for everyone is just a no-no in security. Um, and quite often people don't see this. Right now, I work a lot with Dynamics customers,
Mm.
and what Dynamics customers do is they focus on Dynamics. And they don't even know that if they have a Dynamics license, there is a whole Power Platform underneath that is just as open as it is.
Mm.
No DLP, no environments, everyone has access, and every administrator who is like, oh my God, no, never. Um, and that is something. So if you use Microsoft products, then even if it's a platform as a service and not a software as a service, and there's a difference from the very beginning, you know that you have some effort to do in terms of setting up and securing it according to your business needs.
Mm.
It's not like switch it on, everything is fine, like DLP, as you just mentioned it. That is maybe the fifth key knowledge part for governance and security in the Microsoft universe. Microsoft gives you lots of great opportunities and cool tools, but you have to check them out and understand them and set them up according to your needs. Otherwise, it can get risky.
Mm. Okay. I have in every session a rapid fire round. So I give a short question and you give a short answer. So,
Oh, damn. Okay.
what one sentence describe good Power Platform governance for you?
Um, Clarity and intention.
Okay. The biggest mistake makers do on the Power Platform.
Assuming that it's easy.
The biggest mistake the IT does on the Power Platform.
Ignoring it because it's just low code.
What's the best coach in Cologne?
Best code, a coach. Tricky. Xeon.
Okay. Um, One governance topic that gets too little attention.
The whole governance topic gets too less attention.
Okay. Uh, what did you think? Yeah, how are they? What is more worse, shadow IT or blocked innovation?
Ah, um, Shadow IT.
Okay, if Satya Nadella comes to you and say, Michael, you get all the resources and money you need to make a feature on the Power Platform governance, what feature will you develop?
I would decline that offer. Um, and maybe I can give a reason for that because what I'm good at is working on specific solutions with people and finding out their needs and their setup. I help them become the experts for their own work environment and for their own work. And I'm not someone who develops features. Others can do that. Maybe I would take the resources and give that to someone else, but help them figure out what they want to do and why. That's that's the point.
Yeah, so yeah. Then who shall I invite next and what questions shall I ask?
I have a good names. I have a few good names, but I don't know who's been in your show recently. So I would have to check that. But from the top of my head, I'm thinking about my brilliant UK colleagues like Simon Owen or Craig White, for
Okay.
example, um, and someone who is a real Power Platform hero that I hardly see somewhere in the community is Native Turtle,
Okay.
and he is just great. He's from the UK as well. Never met him before, I think, but he is great, and I'm just living on his blog posts recently because he is really good at ALM, the whole the whole GitHub pipeline thingy. That is something where I learn a lot right now.
Yeah, so yeah, Michael, thank you so much for being here. I think this was an excellent talk. Yeah, we have a lot of we have the big five now, done. Yeah, I think this was really great. I think that we have learned a lot. We have good takeaways, and we have also I think the reframing for the governance. It's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you for staying here the hour with me and on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, yeah, I'm open. I'm open. So then we can do the security part.
Oh yeah, that's another story.